Okay, Mr. Savin, I would first of all like to thank you for the possibility for us to speak to you and to take this interview. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a few questions about the situation around Russia and then a few questions about Russia itself.
Situation in Russia, it's a very large and difficult question. At first, after announcement of Eurasian Union of Mr. Putin, Russia have a new priority and new strategy. In December 2020, Ministry of Foreign Affairs presented new doctrine of external politic, foreign politic of Russian Federation. So we waiting for new big changes. I think Russia will deal with this option in a new year and in the forthcoming years to organize full and powerful Eurasian Union.
About the movement of Eurasianism as a project, could you tell me that how the movement itself and its principles that is clearly founded within Russian spirit, Russian mentality? For example, to give a practical difference, how do you think about the difference in the feel as a group? Russian as a group feeling and us Western Europeans as being very individual. How can you imply Eurasianism within that difference?
Actually, we have a few kinds of Eurasianism. Originally, it is formed by Russian migrants after Great Social Revolution. So idea was that Russia is not Europe and is not Asia. It's very own culture, very own space with different ethnic groups involved in some kind of big space. If we speak by words of German philosopher Carl Schmitt, for now there is a few trends in Eurasianism. One trend is cultural. It's about idea that some people, some countries are very friendly to each other. For example, Turk people and Slavic people and Ukrainian people, they have sympathy to each other. And Russian super ethnos, for example, Lev Gumilev write about it, was formed by Slavic ethnic group and Finno-Ugric ethnic group and Turk ethnic group. So next level is political level. It idea to unite not only ex-Soviet Republic, it's a first step to unite ex-Soviet Republic to one political space, and the second step is to unite all Eurasian states. For now it's mostly national states, etat states, and to make cooperation with European Union and maybe in future to be united in one big political, economical, cultural space from Far East till the most western point of Europe.
Then how do you, as a movement and in the political reality, how do you work with the fact that all the NATO bases are actually surrounding the Russian centerland, and what can you actively do to prevent this, and how do you cope with this?
And the Russian government and Russian people understand well that NATO is instrument of Western domination, and we have a few options to combat it. And this, first is hard power, it's Russian military base and Russian military cooperation with China, with organization and the states who have the same political practice like Russian Federation. Another point of view is to use a soft power, and it's implemented in new doctrine of Russian Federation to use soft power. It's cultural influence, economical influence, and a little bit political influence, but another method.
Okay. There was talk, and there's for long been talk about an axis of Paris, Berlin, Moscow, but let's just keep it to Berlin and Moscow for now. What is your opinion on on the possibility to actually form an axis like this?
At first idea to build independent national state in Eastern Europe was provided by British and American persona, idea of Sir Halford Mackinder, to make some kind of borderlands between Germany and Russia, because they're afraid when Germany and Russia will be united, so America, I mean the United States, will not dominate on the Eurasian big space. So idea of this axis, Paris, Berlin, Moscow, and so on, and Tokyo maybe, is a good idea in sense to undermine the hegemony of United States in here in Eurasia. So it's idea of strategical pivot to make big Eurasian space.
Knowing how the ideological reality is in Europe at the moment, in Western Europe, how would you, as an organization, try to spread the idea of the Eurasianism in Western Europe?
I think in Western Europe and the European Union, people a little bit afraid of Russian influence because of many years of black propaganda. Propaganda of communism and propaganda from NATO countries and exactly from United States. Now new generation a little changed this mind. Picture is changing. Russia is not a monster for European people like it was before on TV, in newspapers and so on. And because of the economical crisis in Europe, because of identity crisis, and half of European Union countries think about cooperation mostly with Russia, because it depended of Russian oil, of Russian gas, and another hand Russia have a big land territory, and Europe mostly is occupied.
Yeah.
So in future it will be possible to use land territory in Russia like living space, for example, for Europeans. So I think this idea to cooperate more closer to Russia is idea of future.
Okay. To come back to the propaganda you mentioned, as we know, the propaganda is still very active in Western Europe. We know that most of the information about Russia is very colored and mostly anti-Russian. We get the news about protests here in Russia, and we know, of course, that it's all very colored. What I would actually like to ask is, how strong does the idea of Eurasianism live within Russia itself?
Idea of Eurasianism at first is very popular now in Russia, because when Soviet Union was broke, most people want to make a new rules to live together. Political elites not want. It was predatory elites that mostly interested in, for example, in profit for ourselves. Now peoples of Russia, of Republic of Kazakhstan, and mostly people from Ukraine understand that live better, to cooperate closer and to live together is much better than now. So I think this idea will be implemented in political practice.
And next to the Russian population itself, how do you actually convince or give the information about Eurasian? How do you spread the thought with other groups that live around the Russian central land, to talk, for example, about Turkic people or Finno-Ugric people? How do they stand towards the idea of Eurasianism?
In Turkey, for example, we have very own school of Eurasianism, because Turkey plays between Europe, Africa, and Asia, and we cooperate very closely with some Eurasian groups in Turkey. President of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, about 20 years ago also proposed to do new union based on a new principle. new Eurasian Union. So I think it's the idea is very good.
We see that certain groups that could be very sympathetic to the idea of Eurasian in the West often come from the right, and then the thought of nationalism arises. How does your movement work with thoughts that resemble nationalism?
Nationalism, idea of nationalism is based on sovereign states and idea of modernity. And now situation is much changed. We live in epoch of postmodernity. So to speak seriously about nationalism like 100 years ago is no sense. We cooperate with some nationalistic, moderate nationalistic groups, and they understand. They, of course, try to keep to our identity. We also, all Eurasianism, try to keep identity, to save identity of every people, every ethnic group. So we have a common basis with moderate nationalist groups. But radical nationalism in most cases are instrument of external influence, mostly from the United States.
As the essence of Eurasianism comes from the Russian spirit, from, as we already mentioned, the common feeling within the Russian people, and also religion that plays a very important role, and knowing the fact that the ideological reality and the essence of youth in Western Europe is so poor, what are the lessons that we could learn from Eurasianism and from the Russian spirit?
My friends from Italy, for example, told me that a lot of people now in Italy, in some European countries, very interested in Orthodox Church, in Christian Orthodox religion, and especially in old belief Orthodox religion, because they are very disappointed of Catholic and Protestant Church, and they are very disappointed with situation with atheism, with postmodernity, what happens in the European Union. So I think that European people can to find in the Orthodox religion many interesting things, but at first they need to study maybe a little bit of Russian language and Slavonic language to understand, for deep understand what is it, because for my opinion Orthodox religion to keep a lot very good ideas, that ideas not of contemporary and not of past, but ideas of eternity, and future is also eternity.
Okay, Mr. Savin, thank you very much for the interview, and I take a very valuable lesson home. Thank you.
Thank you too.